There we are. I want to welcome everyone. My name is Jules VanSant. I'm the Executive Director for the Pacific Printing Industries Association PPI. We're an affiliate of Printing Industries of America. I'm pleased, along with some of my affiliate partners, Printing Industries of Georgia, Visual Media Alliance, Printing Industries of Southern California, as well as Printing Industries of New England, to present this event today. With us to talk about the megatrends in the printing industry. Hopefully you can see everyone that's presenting today. We have Paul Reilly with New Direction Partners. We have Joe Polanco, who also is with New Direction Partners. And finally, we have Cary Sherburne, who is with whattheythink.com. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I'm going to hand, let me again once reiterate that if you have questions, then go ahead and type those in the chat. Please do. We'll be stopping during some of our presentation to answer those questions. We will again send you a link for the recording as well as for the handouts afterwards. With that, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, so Cary, if we can move to slide 2 and then slide 3. Here's the agenda. And as we look at slide 3, we're going to look at megatrends from 2 different perspectives. The first one is leading edge technology that we'll talk about Drupa and the new technologies that we saw at Drupa. We're also going to talk about a new technology. We call it PCIT, Proprietary Customer Interface Technology, that we see to be very effective in improving the ability for commercial printers to grow. We're going to spend as much time as we can on this, but first I'm going to pass it off to Joe Polanco, who's going to talk about the mega trends that we see impacting the commercial print industry. Joe?
Thanks, Paul. Again, good morning to our folks in the West Coast and the back East. Good afternoon. Mega trends, when you talk about trends, we really are going to discount the trends that may be the day-to-day business issues, those that are impacting our price in day or next month, even a recession or ups and downturns in the economy. We're looking at, in a sense, something that might have an effect over 5 years for the industry. And as we all know, we're in a no-growth situation. That's very obvious. Since 2009, our industry's had pretty well minimal no growth. It's pretty well flatlined per Dr. Ron Davis of PIA and many of the economists out there. And as we saw by the Fed yesterday, the Fed talking about not making any rate changes, we're probably going to continue to see slow growth in the economy over the next year to 2 years. And as Dr. Davis has said for many years, our industry does track GDP, which is significant, will signify that we are going to be flatlining as far as overall growth is concerned. Given that over that period of time, 2009 to let's say 2007, which is really our high tide, if you will, for our industry, we had approximately $120 billion in sales of commercial print. We are now at about 86. That's about a 25% decrease in overall sales in the industry at that point in time. We lost 6,000 firms, again, per Dr. Davis, during that period of time, and that, with the slow growth, gives us a lot of excess capacity. We still have too many cylinders out there, and that, again, is going to continue to affect our growth in our industry. Let's talk about the selling execs in our industry. That has, again, exacerbated the situation because historically, our industry has really served a known need of print. And what we've seen over the last 10 years, as historically that we've gone to more and more digital communications, our sales forces still tend to focus on known needs. Solution selling has been very difficult for us to absorb and grasp. In fact, as a former president of PIA for many years, one of the complaints I had and laments over the last 5 years from many CEOs and owners was that we cannot find new salespeople. We are challenged with our existing sales force to make them understand solution selling as well as digital short-run solutions. So consequently, this became a major concern of many CEOs and owners, And given today's nature of shorter projects, shorter runs, this is going to continue. So we're going to continue to see these challenges, and we have to find ways to address that and from a sound perspective. In fact, one thing that Paul and I talked about is that we feel over the past 10 years that this lack of solution selling has exacerbated the situation to create openings for the print management firms. These firms did not exist 20 years ago and are now significant players in the community. And probably another reason why we're seeing less organic growth and a focus on mergers and acquisitions by many firms. So that's the sales side. Next major trend is consolidation of customer and supplier bases. And we're talking a consolidation not only in corporations, mergers, acquisitions, as we've all seen over the last 5-10 years, and probably that's a long-term trend of consolidation, but we're seeing internal consolidation. We no longer see that professional print buyer making decisions on what kind of dots per square inch or how many units your presses had. That's changing also how buying's going on, the impact of that consolidation and internally as well externally. Consequently, our sales force more than ever has to be thinking much more proactive than the past because things are changing and will continue to change. No two ways about it. On the manufacturing side, our production side is being affected by suppliers. We've seen more consolidation there in the arena of our manufacturers, our paper mills, distributors, and even the local area. I know from my perspective, I'm in Dallas, Texas. I bet you there's half the number of suppliers to our printers in North Texas than there were 10 years ago. And that's a continued trend, continued basis going on. If you note, yesterday HP announced that they're consolidating or buying Samsung's technology. That will have a big play in going forward with technology and our consolidation of our bases. Shorter runs, again, obvious to everyone. In fact, if you polled most printers 10 years ago, maybe about 30-40% had digital solutions. Today, it's probably about 90% of our commercial printers have some sort of digital solution. It could be a very simple device, or it could be a very highly complex HP 10,000. They're out there, and we'll continue to see that as an effective shorter runs. Our clients are pushing us to cut cost. They want faster turnarounds, and our technologies that allow us to do that through digital technologies, fashion make-readies with our equipment to deliver cost-effective printing. That will again continue. Now, here's one big thing that we're starting to see just recently is that big data is something that many advertisers are starting to be cognizant of. Big data is going to require one-on-one integrated marketing solutions. And once advertisers, both corporate and agencies, start figuring out how to embrace big data, we will see that trend of shorter runs, integrated marketing accelerate. Our last trend, and by the way, there's 5 mega trends we've isolated. There could be more, but these are the 5 that we've looked at. Is that our high-quality mass-produced equipment technology is really, really affecting how we see things today and in the future. We're no longer concerned about digital is good enough. We know it. It's out there. It's we have major firms investing millions and millions upon dollars, and as I stated earlier about the Samsung consolidation with HP or purchase. There's, I think I recall correctly, like 6,000 different patents that Samsung has that is going to help HP further look at how they accelerate their print solutions. So we're seeing this investment not only by HP, but Xerox, by Canon, OC, all those folks to really drive those issues. You see the Heidelbergs, the KVAs, all those other providers as well, looking at how can we provide better, faster equipment. In fact, I'm joking with some friends, we may have some driverless presses in the near future. Maybe not, but we're seeing that acceleration that anyone can operate a printing device. This means that our buyers are now going to look at us, no differentiation. Technology, printing presses, but it doesn't matter whether it's digital offset, anyone can do it. So that, again, is a trend that will continue. There's a dark side of this, and this is one that concerns some folks, but also see opportunities. As technology improves, it always goes to the consumer. So we will see solutions somewhere down the road where these devices end up in our customer's home, so to speak, and in a sense, create a little bit of competition there. But again, as Paul will address later on, there's many things that we can do as printers to be able to help us defend that position and provide really unique solutions that can help us offset these trends. Again, these are 5 major trends that we'll see at least for the next 4 to 5 years, and we've seen many of these for the last 5 or 10 years. So let's translate into our next slide. And Cary's now going to talk about Drupa. She was at Drupa in Germany and this last spring, and she's going to give us some insights of what she saw and what she thinks going. Cary?
Thanks, Joe. And, you know, a lot of people are describing Drupa 2016 as a watershed event for the industry. It was really amazing to me. Usually when I'm ready to leave Drupa, I'm ready to leave Drupa, but this time I could have stayed another couple days. There was just so much going on. This image that shows the crowds, that isn't even you know, as busy as it was. Most days there were 30,000 people there, and you know, when we think about Graph Expo, we don't even get that many over the whole show. So, and you know, there were a total of 260,000 visitors and a little over 1,800 exhibitors at the show. And people were in a buying mood. If you go, for example, if you went and looked on What They Think and searched for Drupa, you'll see a ton of big deals that were announced. But the vendors were telling me that, you know, literally people were really in a buying mood, and particularly the Chinese were coming over with like suitcases of money ready to buy. So there were 6 trends that I identified going through the show. I wanted to go through each of them briefly. The list is here, but we'll take each of them individually. So Industry 4.0, that was a big buzzword at the show, and what that means really is it's the 4th industrial revolution, and it's beyond just printing, but Industry 4.0 is really well underway in print now. So, for example, hardware-intensive companies are moving beyond the box. If you think about people like Heidelberg or Komori or KBA, they're offering services way beyond the press, and they're even saying, you know, it has to go beyond the box. You can't just build your business around the press anymore. Everybody is pretty much delivering updated software suites, which means that there's a lot more integration going on out of the box. And sometimes those software suites are one vendor, and sometimes it's an ecosystem, which leads to the next one, which is you saw a lot more multi-vendor collaboration, and that's good for all of us. So the vendors are sort of joining together. For example, HP printed 51 different applications during the show on 51 different substrates with their inkjet press. And during the show, they distributed those rolls to finishing partners for processing. So as a visitor, you could see it being printed, then you could go over to the finishing place and see the applications being finished in real time. Another example was Xerox and KBA partnering on a folding carton press, which was kind of a surprise to everybody. So these partner ecosystems are really a lot more prevalent. People like InFocus, Kodak and Komori, EFI and ESCO, HP's Print OS. So this is a big thing you should be watching for, and how that can benefit your business in terms of leveraging the capabilities of all these vendors in a more integrated manner that doesn't require you to do all the integration yourself. We also saw just about everybody talking about the ability to use machine data to set benchmark practices. And I'll use Heidelberg as an example here, because they did an outstanding job on this in explaining how they are now collecting data from all of their installed base, and they can actually use that to take, for example, if you have a well-performing site with a Heidelberg press and you have an underperforming site, they can use the benchmark data from the performing site, anonymously of course, and help the underperforming site see where they could improve. So that's really important and a real benefit for our audience here. And the last one was really cloud. I mean, everything is in the cloud today, so that's just something to keep in mind. The second one was digital direct to corrugated printing, which was, again, kind of another surprise, because at Drupa 2012, there was only one company talking about this, and they had samples but no machine, and that was Bobst. At Drupa 2016, Bobst was still talking about it. They still didn't have a machine at the show, but they had samples. And all of these others that you see listed here were now bringing solutions to market. The two that had prototypes that you could, I think the HP one was actually, I don't think they had a prototype there, but EFI actually had a prototype there of the Nozomi, and Konica Minolta had their KMC, and the other one that was really interesting was Screen and VHS, because if you look at all the other solutions that we've seen, they're post processes. So the corrugated material is created with the corrugator, and then the sheets are moved over to the presses. With screen and VHS, they're putting the print in line with the corrugator, which some people think is a little risky, but that's what they decided to do. The next thing would be inkjet really coming of age. You know, the last two Drupas before this were called inkjet Drupas, but now I think it's just mainstream inkjet now. And you know, as Joe talked about, pretty much everybody has digital. I think we're going to be moving into an era where everybody's going to have some kind of inkjet as well as toner, or maybe instead of. So one of the reasons is that we've really increased the capabilities and quality on print heads. We've got a lot of variety in ink. Media, big progress has been made there. So there are a lot of inkjet equipment. There's a lot of inkjet equipment that can print on untreated materials and get pretty good quality. And then if you take a look at all the vendors that are playing in this, the whole list there, that's only actually part of the list, but that's the key players that are really breaking ground with improved quality and reduced price point and so on. We continue to see transition from offset and even flexo in some cases to continuous feed web, and that's mostly been for transaction, direct mail, and books, but now we're seeing the quality get to a point where people are producing catalogs, magazines, and marketing collateral. So it's pulling volume up from toner, and it's pulling volume down from offset, so that's not a trend to keep your eye on. And finally, sheet fed offset is finally here. We've seen announcements from a variety of vendors, as you can see here. And MegaTrends made the statement that by 2019, 55% of all the inkjet placements will be sheet fed. So again, another big trend to watch. And these are obviously more affordable and easier to fit into a sheet fed workflow. This is one that's kind of close to my heart for whatever reason, but fixed color palette printing, or as we call it here in the States, extended color gamut printing, where you're printing, instead of using spot colors, you're using CMYK and orange, violet, green, or in some cases orange, violet, blue. Some cases it's being done with 4 colors or less than 7. But this has become a big point of conversation in the industry, and all of these vendors were talking about fixed color palette printing. There are a lot of benefits to it in terms of efficiencies, and you know, again, something that we should keep our eyes on. This was really probably one of the most exciting areas to me, was embellishing the future. And this is people like Hycon and, excuse me, Scodix and MGI and Lando with this metallography. So this would be digitally doing a lot of the finishing so that you take away the bottlenecks from between printing and finishing. Some of it's inline, some of it's offline, but they're designed now to bring very high quality and be able to deal with the shorter runs that Joe talked about. And some of these are up to 5,000 sheets per hour, so you're getting into real kind of production volumes. So obviously you don't need the dies, you can enable the shorter runs and the faster turn times. And then the other thing is combination presses. So Zycon and HP were both showing inline capabilities where a lot of these embellishments can be done and controlled by the front end. Scodix told me that they doubled their install base based on sales at Drupa, and Hycon also did a significant amount of sales. So this was a really hot area. Then the last one was functional 3D and functional printing. And printers, when I talk to printers, they typically say, "Well, 3D printing, that's not for me." But there were 3 companies at the show that had 3D printing applications specific to digital. Massivit 3D. They print hollow objects, and you can combine that with 2D printing for outstanding vehicle wraps. There's a guy in New York that's done that for the Angry Birds movie, and just recently for another Sony movie. They are actually demonstrating at SGIA this week. Konica Minolta resells 3D systems to printing companies, and then they also partner with Zverse, who's a service bureau that can create 3D images from 2D images, 3D objects from 2D images, so that you can actually get in to 3D printing without making any investments by partnering with somebody like Zeverse. Hycon can use scrap paper, make-ready waste, to make 3D objects using their Hycon shape, and so that was a really interesting one. And then the final thing in 3D was printing on 3D objects. So Heidelberg, Mimaki, Xerox, and Agfa were the ones that showed up most prominently, that were actually printing on things like wine bottles and hockey sticks and soccer balls and so on. So that's another 3D related hot trend. It was a pretty amazing show. That image that you see in the bottom, that hanging there, was created using a Hycon machine. I don't know how many thousands of pieces are in there in that chandelier thing, but it was really amazing. Great show. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Cary, there are a couple of questions. First of all, the commercialization of nanotechnology. That's obviously kind of been the buzz now for a couple of Drupas. What do you see?
Well, yeah, Benny's a showman. And he claims to have done 450,000 euros worth of business at the show. And as opposed to last Drupa, which was letters of intent, these, he claims, were actual sales of the presses. They will not be available till sometime really in 2018, if we're lucky. So that remains to be seen. I mean, it's a great technology. The issue they've had is quality. They can't get the quality to where it needs to be. And they're working on it, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Gotcha. Another question on the 3D, again, another hot topic. I work with companies that are not commercial printers that seem to be doing very well in that space. What do you see as far as the opportunity for commercial printers to incorporate that? Other than what you talked about in partnership, do you see a bridge?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the work that Zeverse is doing, for example, with a Sir Speedy in Florida, that's doing a lot of business with them. Their customer, Sir Speedy's customer, is a boat dealer, and so when they sell a boat, they're printing a 3D model of that boat with the name on it, and the dealer's name and whatever, and they give that as a gift. The one area that's most exciting to me, though, is the blend between 2D and 3D that Charisma Printing out of Brooklyn is doing with Sony with the bus wraps. So you can actually print in 2D and then put these 3D objects on there. Being in New York, the biggest problem is pieces get stolen off the buses. Other than that, but no, I think that there's a lot of opportunity. And if you take a look at these companies that are focused on the graphic arts industry, that's where to start. The guy at Charisma said that he's been so busy since he started working with Sony, he hasn't even had time to print samples. He's just in full production.
That's awesome. I'm hoping we see more people inspired to, again, take on some of these trends and be market leaders and not laggards. So thanks for that. That was great. Okay, so I think next we're going to move on to Paul Reilly.
Yeah. Thank you, Jules. And thank you, Cary. I was not at Drupa, and I really enjoyed your synopsis of the show. It's always, I miss not being there. It's always exciting, but thanks for sharing what you learned from there. I'm going to talk about really, really, really good news. And it has been, as Joe talked about in his presentation, increasingly difficult to differentiate in the marketplace. And some of it has to do because the technology that we use in providing our client services are available everywhere. So what I'm going to talk about is something which has a high level of customization that allows you to provide a product and service that is different than your competitor down the block. So what we're seeing in printing is not that unusual in a mature market. We have seen industries other than ours deal with it successfully, but it becomes increasingly difficult. So go to the next slide. So as long as we as a firm can do things differently than what our competitors do, we can actually succeed in this marketplace. So let me move on a bit if we can, Cary, here. So this is a chart that I put together as an example of technology within the print industry. And going from left to right, we're looking at time, and going south to north, we're looking on a return on any technology investment. It could be a printing press, it could be an ERP system, but we always start off at the beginning of a technology investment and we lose money. It's startup cost, it's getting the technology to work. Then we start debugging the technology, and we start to get some payoff. Then we get acceptance by our customers. They really, really like it. And then the person that sold us that technology starts to sell it to our competitors.
Of course.
I'm sure we've all seen this. And the track goes down, 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 until ultimately it's negative. This is the bane, and it has been the bane of our industry. It is, by just taking a technology investment, it's very difficult to be different, because when it's good technology, it gets sold to competitors. And we do, as an industry, have a cost-plus mentality. And I mean, just think of direct-to-plate and all the benefits that we have given away to our customers. I mean, direct-to-plate was a fantastic technology. None of us are seeing the benefits of that. It's all gotten passed off in lower prices to our competitors. But what I'm going to talk about today, this is the chart that Joe went through. And generally speaking, the mega trends that Joe had talked about were negative. The proprietary customer interface technology that I'm going to talk about, we also see it as a mega trend, is actually positive. And that's what makes it so exciting. Next slide. So if I could talk about, what is PCIT? Sometimes I refer to it as web to print on steroids. There's a component of web to print because lots of printers have adopted web to print technology, but I'm starting with a web to print technology and then building around it a lot of customized, bespoke techniques that actually make your job, the way you're servicing your particular entity, different than even what you may be supporting another client. It's different. Every client is different. And generally speaking, it is making it easier to do business with you, the printer. And it includes all the things you see here, design, order, producing, logistics, and it goes all the way back into workflow. And the most successful people we see in PCIT are actually fully integrated in the back end, that their front end web to print systems talk all the way through to their production systems, all the way through to shipments. So go to the next slide. Before I do this, do we have any questions that we have here, Jules?
Yeah, I have a quick question. What about when firms incorporate the PCIT technology? Does that help out with their multiples if they're looking at valuations down the road?
Yeah, actually, and the slide we have here, it does increase multiples, and it increased multiples about a full turn. So if a commercial printer today, typical commercial printer may trade at a 4 times multiple. When we have seen a full gamut of PCIT, we see about a 5 multiple. And normally you get to that 5 multiple when about 40% of your sales are running through PCITs. The reason why that happens is that people that have adopted, and we refer to them as MSPs, they've adopted this technology. There's an increase in the stickiness. It's very, very difficult for a competitor to take this technology and replicate it and do the same thing that you do. So there's a bit of stickiness. You tend to grow. You get a higher concentration of a customer's business. And generally speaking, we see have and have nots, that the people that have adopted this technology are growing 5, 6, 7% a year, where we know the market is really not growing that much. We also see people that have fully adopted this technology, they have better than average profitability. Double-digit EBITDA margins, PIA profit leaders. And if there's anything that, when you go into a shop that has adopted PCIT, you feel it. The people, they're having fun. I mean, it's an entirely different perspective. It's like the 90s all over again, or the early 2000s. People are having fun and they're enjoying being a printer.
That's great. So is this an off-the-shelf technology? What are you seeing, that versus homegrown?
It's a bit of both. So some people will start with an off-the-shelf technology, a web-to-print system, but they'll buy a system that they can put in hooks that allows them to customize the application for their customers. And the more customization you do, the better. Let me give you a couple examples. So in this particular case, we're talking about a printer that serves car dealerships. And in this particular case, they are helping dealers manage their service costs. They manage the data. They actually keep the data on the printer, actually keeps the data on their servers. They have information about their client that the client doesn't have. I mean, it's so important, the information that they have. And the best part about this particular application is that on every campaign, the printer can actually tell their client how much money they made in that campaign. So they have actually hooked into the point of purchase systems at the car dealership. So they're collecting information about the people that have used the coupons, they've gone on, they do emails, pearls, whatever. A fantastic application. And there's so much stickiness here. In this particular case, the dealership and the network of dealership bought the printer. That's how much stickiness is there.
Wow.
So let me go another one. College admissions. So this is a printer that saw an opportunity for medium and small colleges to help them increase applications. And that was the game. How can I get more kids to apply to these smaller universities? And they started with public databases, people that took the PSATs, the SATs, and the ACTs. And then over time, they started to build information about the kids and the kids' parents as they got on and used this application. Normally, when they brought on a new client, it started as a consulting gig. I'll come and help you increase the applications. Well, this is a fantastic application. At the end of the day, what made it so great, that the people, the schools that they work with, they actually were able to increase the applications by 30%. Next one. This is what's neat about this one, it's somebody was in the business of doing photo albums, good people, and they actually worked with their clients through social media. So they had a group of people that drove through social media people to their website. And they did that by offering a free photo book of their pets. Now, for some people, that's even better than your grandchildren. Now, me, grandchildren would be great, but this is a group that really liked pets, and it was a great, great application, and grew to a many million-dollar application. Next one. I don't know, we're all in small business. I have a couple of small businesses outside of the printing industry, and it's always been difficult to put together a really good direct mail application that's affordable. This particular company started with their clients' database. They hooked it up with people like Constant Contact or Salesforce.com. The MSP took that data and did a soup-to-nuts direct mail application. I mean, essentially, information went in, and it went in the mail. And the business model here was essentially charging their clients. By the way, it was about $1 a piece that went in the mail. A great application. They grew very, very quickly. They gave their clients great reports, return on investments, what kind of responses did they get. So another great application, highly bespoke. I mean, in this particular case, it's highly customized for each of their clients. Many of their clients were small businesses or franchisees. So, real estate would be a fairly good example, but restaurants sending out campaigns to the local areas would be another one. So, great application. Next. This application, as I traveled around the country, I had the honor of getting to walk through a lot of plants, and I also had the honor of many times looking at their financial statements. And I have seen this application at several companies, but this is by far the best retail store plan. I mean, essentially, the entire business, the marketing department of this 1,500 store retail operation was built around the box. And the box got delivered on Saturday. And in that box, it gave the person in charge of that store, this is what you need to install. Here's the signs you need to take down. Here's when you need to put on the end caps. But what made this special was that it was customized by each of those 1,500 stores. So every box that went out, and it went out on Friday afternoon from this company, every box was different. And it allowed this company to have customized marketing plans for each of their stores, regions, the climate. Right now, I'm at 10,000 feet. There's a shovel outside. We expect snow this evening, and my local store has a different need than where Joe is, where, Joe's in the heat of Dallas. It's probably 100 degrees. And Cary, she's just looking at sun and waves at the beach. So so we're all examples of different people, and we know Jules needs a rain jacket. So
that's good.
But it allows each of these stores to have a customized program. One of the great things they did for the marketing department is on Wednesday afternoon, up to Wednesday afternoon, they could actually make changes on sales. So given the latest information available, they would be able to put in different prices by store. A great application. Extreme customer stickiness. This is a company that's growing 15-20% a year. One of the great success stories in our industry. This last item, this is a great company that works with people that are looking at moving images around the world. a lot of photo books, a lot of just regular books. The average run length in this company is 1.2. Almost 1.2. And they're able to put out a book at unbelievable costs because they are fully integrated. Big plant, very few people in it, highly automated, a great application where they wrote a lot of software to automate the process. Again, a very successful company. With that, I think I have time for some questions. Jules, how are we doing here?
We're doing great on time. So a quick question on the idea of, again, the box that goes to those 1,000 stores. Would a company be concerned if they just really put all of their, investment into that client? I mean, I know it's sticky, but what do you feel about the risk that could come along with that kind of an adventure?
Jules, great question. And in fact, many of the companies I just went through have a high level of customer concentration. 2 or 3 customers in most cases are 50% of the sales. So yes, there is a high level of concentration. And because of the value that they are providing their clients, it's less of a concern for their clients, but more of a concern for the printer themselves, because they do end up with a high level of concentration. And we see any company within our industry that has a high level of solution sales ends up with a high level of concentration. There's nothing about it. But if you have this stickiness, so you don't have the large customer because it's a low price. You have a large customer, or you're doing a lot of it because you do a lot of work for them. It's not nearly as risk of being the low cost producer and having somebody take a big swat of business for you for a penny a thousand or something. But it's clearly the case.
Well, and you could, going back to some of the trends that Joe talked about, I mean, if you can incorporate new technologies and if you can continue to be fresh to your customer, again, that just probably increases your stickiness. And then what about these firms that have this kind of niche? What about them then going, what do you see as far as them going into other similar niches to expand? Would client A, are they struggling with them taking this program to client B, or companies being able
Some do and some don't. It's an excellent point. That company, the retail company, it started out doing work in one retail segment and then went to another retail segment.
Okay.
I have seen some printers adopt this technology and have trouble taking it to the next one. And I don't know why, but if it's within the same industry, I've seen a few in pharmaceutical, able to take it to one pharmaceutical and then be able to very easily take it to a next. But it is highly customized, and you got to get to the right people. These packages are sold CMO and higher.
Right.
CFO is involved at the client, and many times the president is involved with the company. So it's a tough sale. Lead times, 6 months, year, couple of years, some kind.
Long investment.
So I have a question, and if we go back to one of these examples, it's obviously a fairly you talk about it being customized, and it's fairly complex. From a staffing perspective, what does that mean in terms of needing to have internal IT staff? I mean, this is one thing I think that scares a lot of printers.
Great questions. These people are hiring geeks.
Oh yeah, all of them.
So when you talk to them, not only are they talking about, do I have enough press people? Do I have enough programmers? I will also say, and here's a rule of thumb, that when people have adopted this technology, we end up seeing about 2% of employment involved in people totally dedicated in programming to their customers. I'm not talking about people involved in programming and manufacturing. But these are people that are involved with onboarding, loading files. So, if you have a 100-person shop, they may have 2 people 100% of their time involved in working with programmers that do nothing other than deal with customers.
Well, so then this goes, Joe, I have a question for you. Paul's talking about, the sales process, and you spoke earlier about the fact that getting sales people is, what kind of salespeople do we need to look for, and where are we going to find those people? It's a real problem, isn't it?
It really is. I would say normally the owner of the company, the first person that he or she sees in the morning is the person who's best at selling these things, because it requires that sort of commitment. If a client is going to put all of their faith in you, you need that level. There are a lot of people within our industry, and Joe talked about it earlier. They know how to fulfill a need that already exists. In this particular case, you need people that are listeners, problem solvers. They know financial. In many cases, it sounds like the president or the CEO. But there are industries where you can get people. I've seen people bring people from software companies, people that sell software. They're good at selling these because they listen to problems. People in telecommunication industries, people that have been selling there, have good skills in listening and solving problems. It's not a skill that resides fully within our industry, that's for sure.
Another approach I've seen people take is if you're in retail or if you're pharmaceutical, is hiring salespeople from those industries, because it's easier for them to learn about printing than it is to learn in depth about the industry.
Yeah, and solving those people's pain, understanding their pain points, solving their problems. That's true.
And talking their language.
Yep. All right.
I'd like to concur again that we've seen the same thing here, that the IT worlds of telecommunications and software, there's where a lot of folks have gone to. The problem, though, becomes, this is something our sales compensation survey showed earlier in the year, most of these folks are salaried. They're not a commission-based rep. They tend to be salary plus bonuses,
right,
which is a hurdle for many of our printers because they're used to a commission-based sale cycle, which is low cost with low sales, and if sales upscale, so does commissions. This works a little bit differently, but again, you're dealing with a total different process, and that's one that I think is still creating a challenge, for lack of a better word, for the industry.
Yeah, Joe, and the classic hunters.
Oh.
I mean, they would go on, hunt, move that application to the service people within the organization, CSRs, the IT people, and then they're off hunting a new client. They're not going to service these accounts day in and day out. They have different skills.
So true.
Okay, so we do have a couple of questions, and so transitioning on the personnel side, the support staff for that sales group. I've been noticing that in the printing population, specifically those with particular knowledge sets, CSRs, estimators, sales folks, they're aging. We have a difficult time finding a CSR with printing experience under 55. Any ideas? Look at it goes silent.
Joe, this is your area of expertise.
55 is the new 30.
Along those lines, what I've seen, and just for those in the audience, I handled the PIA wage compensation survey, and for the last 3 years, there's been a major acceleration in customer service compensation, as people are realizing that that's an area that these individuals are highly skilled in understanding and managing complex projects. So Jules' perspective is, and back to what Paul was saying, you've got to find someone who in customer service who understands it all. They're now going to have to know print. They'll now also have to understand the IT side and how to interface with the client. I think we're seeing the numbers of customer service support personnel to a salesperson changing dramatically. Yeah. I remember when I was a customer service person, I could handle a sales rep and maybe 2 sales reps. Today, what you're seeing is a much more different ratio, where you might have 3 or 4 sales reps with 1 customer service person, and then an internal salesperson is supporting them. The direction are different because of the knowledge base required. But it's a challenge. No two ways about it. No two ways about it.
And the CSR production managers, the IT people, they're key. I mean, they're going to, that you don't really need a salesperson to manage these accounts after you land them. You need a CSR, production planner, and IT people. And you need a hunter to go get the next one. So, where you get them, the skills that reside within a printing facility, within the CSR group, they're good. They're good at this. They know how to do that. But
Paul, one thing we've seen here recently, and you've seen it as much as I have, if not more, is the mergers acquisitions. We have clients that are basically looking to acquire these types of firms with these skill sets. Mm-hmm. They're a traditional printer, but they know that rather than trying to home grow it, they're going to go out there and look for a firm that's doing these digital print solutions and acquire that firm and buy that expertise, which is another solution, a little bit more expensive one, but it's a solution.
That's right.
And also, I think, partnering with educational institutions of various types, getting interns in and sort of home growing them that way, getting younger people in that way.
I think the technology side is the challenge for so many firms, that if they aren't keeping ahead of that curve and hiring those people and giving them kind of the rope to expand their outreach and their systems, their MIS and all of that, it's hard to keep those younger employees engaged. You really have to understand new technology and try to incorporate that if you want to bring those new employees in. Otherwise, they come in, you train them, they get bored.
Right.
I think that could be a real problem. Another question, Cary, for you, since you are a Drupa gal. The increased speeds of 3D, are you seeing that they're getting better? Because that was a bit of a barrier to entry, I think, as we're used to, people are used to getting immediate response when they want something. So what were you seeing on the 3D side that way?
Well, you're seeing speeds increase. You're seeing, of course, the faster speeds are more expensive, but you're seeing also a broader range of materials being used. But the bottom line is that the applications for these are replacing things that you either couldn't do before, like that bus wrap thing would have been really hard to do, or things like, the classic example is a GE injector in a jet engine used to take 18 parts to make that injector. Now it's just printed. So you have to look at it a little bit differently, not so much how long it took to make that part, but what was the alternative before, and how can you speed up the overall cycle time for the customer.
So I'll show you. Here is an award that we 3D printed. We've done 4 of these.
Beautiful.
And it's a ceramic type material. So it's different. In the past, we've used resin. So this is very cool. Again, this is the application, and it took them. We had 4 of them printed, and it took them a day. After the engineering was done. Obviously, file prep is very different, but that's great to hear.
One of the things that Charisma in Brooklyn did was when they decided that they were going to buy this machine, they were the first ones in the United States to have the Massivit printer. It's made in Israel, so it took a while to get shipped. So they bought a smaller 3D printer and hired a 3D designer to get their feet wet. And so by the time the machine came in and got installed, they were ready to go. So those are some of the things that you could think about, not that you have to have a long lead time to get the machine in, but start small, or start with somebody like, Zverse as a service bureau, and see where it goes without making a huge investment.
It seems like that's been the barrier, is a lot of people buy the machine thinking they can just do it, and there's a whole back end to it that's very different. So great advice. Yeah. Great advice. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any other on the chat. Any closing remarks that anyone would like to make, as far as, you've given us this wonderful look at where we're at, and where do you see us going from here?
Well, Jules, I have 2 points here. And one of the major point I wanted to make is that PCIT is for everybody. It's just not for big companies. So here is my test. So on the left, we have the MSP, and it's what were the sales of this company before they adopted PCIT technology, and what was it when they were fully mature? So I have one going from 0 to 2, 3 to 5, And I want you to match it up with, who was the 0 to 2 million? Who was the 3 to 5 million? Who was the 30 to 65 million? And give it a thought. Okay, next slide, please. How many got it right? The point is everybody can do it. And any size company can work on it. And the last point, one more slide, and then we'll open up some more questions, is what do I do? And my strong recommendation is to hire a geek. And a geek is somebody that, they're at Cal Poly, they're at RIT, but it's really important that they speak tech and business. So it's somebody who can tell the people in the department what to do, but they're on the sales call with you. They are going to solve the problems. They are going to say, yes, I can do that. And you need to invest in software. And the big key here is that it should be customizable. It just can't be off the shelf. You got to be able to customize it to each of your clients. And every client's different.
And with cloud, that's a lot easier, isn't it?
Right. Absolutely, yeah.
Great.
So that's my my recommendation.
I do have another question. How does the panel, I have a couple of questions. So how does the panel feel like the online printers, for example, Vistaprint, how are they impacting the industry these days? And the opportunities?
From my experience, they have pretty well killed off the printer with less than $1 million in sales. You talk to anyone doing less than $1 million in sales, their major competitor are the Vistaprints of the world. And it's just a fact. And if not taking business away, price pressures, because your client is saying, hold on, I could go get it for $10 a card for these business cards. You want to charge me $65? Okay, I'll do it for $35, whatever it might be. So it is having major impact with a smaller printer. And Paul, back to the print management firms, I think the print management firm, that print management model is probably impacting the larger companies. What do you think?
Absolutely. Let me just talk about Vistaprint first. Marketing. I mean, they do more marketing in that company than all the other 55,000 printers combined. They're taking the simplest products we have, and you can't watch a TV show without them coming on. I applaud them for doing that. And if you got to look at how fast they're growing, they are unbelievably growing, and they're doing with marketing. They're creating demand for a product that's been there for an awful long time. And, the print marketing companies, they're filling that need that you talked about, Joe. These guys and gals are great at listening, solving problems, offering lower prices. They're also beating the crap out of a lot of printers in terms of the pricing they get. But, they have done a very good job with system selling.
I'd like to just make one comment about Vistaprint, and the parent company is now Cimpress, Cimpress, and Robert Keane, they focused on the small office, home office, micro businesses. That was their focus. But if you look at what they're doing now, and I've written a couple of articles and there's some video interviews with Robert on what they think. If you look at what they're doing now, it's going beyond that. Now they're targeting the designers with what they call upload and print, so that it's more complex to submit a job because these guys know what they're doing. So they're starting now to eat more. They're going to start moving up the chain. They're going to eat into $3 to $5 million companies.
Well, Cary, just an aside, there's a company here in North Texas that went from about 5 million to 40 million doing the same stuff, and no one's ever heard of it. And they're out there. So it's not just a Vistaprint, it's a total different business model that we're seeing. And to a certain extent, I guess, Paul, what you're saying, these guys are using the model we're talking about on steroids. But it's now it's a broad band rather than a narrow band. But the technology is where the investment's at.
Very impressive.
Very good. Well, I think we have all of our questions answered for now. Again, we'll be sending along the link to the presentation recording as well as the slides here later today. I want to thank our panelists today, Paul, Joe, and Cary. Again, you see the slide there, contact information for Joe and Paul. I can get you Cary's contact information as well. And if you have any further questions, feel free to pop an email. We have our next session on October 11th on succession planning. Love to have you join us for that with Jim Russell and Peter Schaefer, as well as Cary will be with us again. With that, again, thank you everyone and have a most amazing day.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jules.